All right. So, Wali, prior to starting this interview session, I would like to confirm that you gave consent to have this interview recorded. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Good. So, I already introduced QA pillars to you in our prior calls, right? Just to give you a quick summary. Uh, we are here to identify the possible gaps between your experiences and your portfolio or your CV, and preparing you to job opportunities by simulating an interview. And this interview will be about your chosen topics, which are test automation, load testing, and automation tool selection. Is that correct?
Okay. Okay.
All right. So this interview will be around 40 minutes, but if we exceed the time, I will send you another link so that we can continue the interview session. But for now, we'll stay in this call.
Okay.
All
Sure.
right.
No issues.
Okay. So just introduce myself. You can call me Marj. I'm also a software QA based in the Philippines, and I have about 8 years of experience in manual and automation testing. So, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay. You can call me Wali. I have around 5 years of experience in SQA, and that too in manual and automation. Apart from that, in security testing as well. I've been in the industry working for companies, mostly startups. Some of them were content classification startups, AI based companies, and some of them were fintechs.
Okay. So, how much, like on a daily basis, how much of your time is dedicated to, say, manual testing or automation testing? And I think you also mentioned security or load testing.
Security and load testing, yes. Okay, I'll
So,
explain
yeah,
it to you. Uh,
sure.
it, what happens, it depends on the task. Let's suppose we have a new task, something that is just being created or in the development cycle. So we have to perform manual test over them. Like you can say, if I have a ticket on Monday, I will be working manually on those tickets, writing test cases, writing test plans, scenarios for this for that feature. And once I have done with my manual testing, I move on to the writing the automation scripts for those tests which I have passed. The ones which are failed, I report a bug, but the ones which are passed, I start automating those test cases. And meanwhile, when I am testing my functionalities of the feature, I test the API, I test the security testing, the RBAC testing, role based access testing. And also when the product is complete, like when the feature is completed, I perform a load testing, that how much load this particular feature has on our product. Does it make a product slower, or I perform all type of like performance testing, load testing, and stress testing on that particular feature, that it does it make any performance drawbacks on our system or not. So it depends on day to day what kind of task I'm assigned for the day. If it's a manual task, like if it's a new feature, I have to perform all the manual and all the functional testing one by one, all the steps. That includes every types of testing. Like if the build is fresh, very first build, I run my smoke testing on that. If the build is old, I run my regression testing so that old features are working or not. So it includes all types of testing, all the ad hoc testing and negative testing. So that is my like how a day goes by.
All right. So, are you more on the functional side, or are you more interested in the non-functional side of testing?
I'm working as a hybrid. Both of the functional and non-functional part are part of my job. So I don't think one of them, like I would go for one of them. But yeah, functional is most likely the one I'm interested in, because it takes my you can say attention more than the non-functional one. Like, people won't see a loading or performance bug usually than the UI bug. Like, for suppose, if our customer is using the website, it won't hesitate to see if the page is getting load a bit late, like a 1 2 second delay, not more than that. But he will notice, or he or she will notice, that if there is a particular UI bug, something is not being loaded at all on the UI, something is broken on the UI, or the functionality is not working, I keep interacted with that thing bit much than the non-functional side. But both aspects are important for checking the quality of a product.
Okay, good to know. So, in your opinion, how soon do you start testing?
As soon as the development gets started, once the first build is out, you should start testing. Even when the first build is not out and the developers are working on the development environment, I think you should be involved in the development environment too, to see if any integrational changes make any functional bugs or functional loopholes. Like I have integrated a new login feature, so my old login feature should be working, or old login functionality should be working or not. So I think an SQA should involve as early as the development build goes out.
All right. And do you work with a team or do you write your own like manual test cases?
I write. We have a team, but every team member are assigned to a different component. What component I am working on, I have to write the manual test cases for that. I have to write the scenarios. I have to write the flows of the functionality, and then I have to automate. So it's a hybrid thing. For every component, there is an owner. I am the component owner. I have 16 components under me right now. So I am like writing the manual test cases, writing the automated scripts for that.
Okay. Since you are the component owner, do you have any process with integrating with other like components? How do you build the process or write the process with the integration testing?
Mostly the integration testing is done by the unit test cases that are written by the developers. We just have to oversee them. And when I'm creating my scripts and when I'm writing my test cases, I write cross functional test cases, such as a feature that is in features that are interconnected with multiple components. So once I write the test case, I write my scripts accordingly, so that let's suppose I have created something in component A, will affect it in component B. So it will be a cross verification between those. I create something in component A, then go and check in component B if it's showing or not, and in the automation scripts as well.
Okay. So how do you select which test cases to automate?
That's a very tricky question, because I think every single test case should be automated. But if you don't have the costing limit and amount of time, or if the test case is not scalable, that those test cases can be removed from the automation suite. You can say automating test cases, such as if any text is present on the website or not, would be, I guess, somehow can be left, and the functionality should be tested. More of the UI ones can be left behind, but the functionality one should work, because UI ones can be catered in the manual testing. But on the very end, I'll say that no test case should be left behind, that should not be automated. If you can automate 100, if you have 100 test cases in a release, you can automate 90 of them. You have the time to automate 90 of them. Just automate 90 of them, and the rest of 10 you can automate in the next release. Just add it to the backlog, and once you get time, clear the backlog.
All right. So, how do you how do you know when to stop testing?
When the exit criteria is met, when I think that what I am expecting a functionality to be worked as, if it's working like that and there are no issues found and there are no functionality bugs and issues or any potential issues I can see, that's the time to stop testing. Like it, we call it an exit criteria. There are two types of criteria in testing, like entry criteria and exit criteria. Once the exit criteria is being met, we can stop testing.
Okay. So, have you encountered an escape defect before, and how did you handle
Yes,
it?
multiple times we handle escape defects. Sometimes it's our mistake, very rarely sometimes it's our mistake, because we get 14 days to test a website and it's very unusual to miss anything while testing a web application for 14 days. But somehow sometimes we miss because we don't know how the customer will be using the website or how the customer will be using the application, mobile application or web application, whatever it is. So sometimes we miss a bug and customer reports it, and we cater it like, first of all we check if the test case, particularly a test case was written for the particular defect that has been found by the customer. If yes, then was the test case passed or failed. If the test case was passed, then it was, you can say it was a mistake from the QA side, that he or she passed the test case without even knowing the test is working or not. Then we check the automation scripts if the test case has been automated or not, but that's a very rare case as we automate only n-1 releases. So if a test case is present and it's passed, and is actually passed on our development portal, or you can say staging portal, and it's breaking on the production side, we check the logs of production, like why is it breaking on their end and not on our end. Sometimes it happen too that something is breaking only for the customer, not for us. Then we check the logs and try to find out what's breaking the code, or why the functionality is not working for the production side. And by the logs we know that what's the issue. And for further practices we make sure that every single possibility in a functionality should be written as a test case, either positive one, either positive flow or a negative flow. It should be written in the test cases, and test case should be passed accordingly. If the test case is written, then there is a very low chance of getting an escape.
Okay. So, moving on to your automation tools. What automation tools have you used before?
I have used Catlon Studio. It's a Selenium web-based driver tool and Appium based too. We can automate web application and mobile application both on the same tool. It is very scalable product. You can say we can run parallel and serial testing as well. Sorry, parallel and sequential testing, automation as well. So I've chosen that tool. I guess 3 or 4 years ago. I am also working on Selenium, and you have heard of a new tool that has been come into the market that is called Playwright. It's a very useful tool too, but apart from, like, if I have to choose all of between, I will choose either Selenium or Catalan. So you can say my most of the experience is on Catalan Studio and Selenium.
Okay, got it. So, let's just say in your previous or in your latest project, how did you decide which automation tool and approach to use on the functional side, or if you're going to create your regression test?
How to choose an automation tool, or how to choose what test should be done in regression?
No, on the what do you call this? On the functional side. So, if you're gonna write your regression test, how did you decide which automation tool to use for that project?
First of all, I have to determine what task or processes I want to automate. Then I have to decide like decide my goals, that to what can reduce my manual efforts and improve the accuracy or speeding up my tasks. Um or you can say that I'll check the requirements of my test suite, like what are the features and functionalities that I require from an automation tool, and consider the factors like compatibility, scalability, and ease of use. And also, um, there are multiple tools in the market right now, so I'll compare the reviews and compare the features of along with those, and the cost and support too, like what are the costs are bearable by my company, or is it like uh, costing should be good or not, and the support and engagement from the community is good or not. Then I'll check, you can say, the compatibility of the tool with my current operating system, my hardware and my software as well, or this current like if in a company like us we all have the same laptops, so I should check that the operating system and the hardware and software should support those tools or not. And one of the main features that I one or two of the main features that I look for is like, is the tool is user friendly or not, the interface look good or is easy for to train others, because I am a senior SQ, I have to train multiple people in a month, multiple people in a year, or multiple people in a month. They can hire 3 4 people in the automation side. Sometimes they are fresh and I have to like make them work. So if the tool is user friendly, anyone can learn that with a little bit of help. Then I'll check the integration, like how this tool can integrate with other tools and my system, and like with GitHub, Jenkins, and Ntest. These are some other tools that we used for, like GitHub for repositories, Ntest for keeping our reports. So and so there are many factors, there are many factors that we can choose between, like how to select a um, automation tool. Yeah, right now in these days when hacking is so common, I also check if the tool is secure and compliance based, is if it's if their database is secure enough, that our automation scripts don't get. We are currently using GitHub, but the tool as well keeps his own repository somewhere on the cloud. So, and last but not the least, I also make my final decision after seeing the future development of the tool, like what kind of features they are coming up lately and the process. Because on their website you can see they are coming up with this, they are coming up with that, or you can go to the Facebook page and see they are creating something unbelievable. Like Caton Studio recently launched a tool called test ops that is integrated with AI, and they are connected with chat GPT, open AI. So that was really good for me and to know. So I am a very research person. I research very deeply what tool to select, what not to select, and then I go for it. Sorry for the long answer, but these are the criteria I see when selecting a tool.
No problem. That's acceptable. So, yeah. And which languages are you familiar with? You mentioned in your CV Python and Java. Is that correct?
Yes, Python, Java, Groovy, and you can say Gherkin as well.
Okay, good. So, on the automation side, let's just say Selenium. How do you find um, okay, maybe uh, let me rephrase the question. What are locators, or how do you find the objects in your, say, website?
Objects can be found as by ID, by class, by text, by CSS selector, and we call it an XPath. An XPath, in an XPath you can say, locate an element by ID, class, name, text, or any kind of value if it's given. Like if it's a placeholder, you can also look for a placeholder. But usually we prefer id because it's unique and easy to find the elements. And sometimes we'll use relative xpath, like id with text, id with class, and id with particular css elements, css styles. So these are the locators.
Right. Since you mentioned the ID, what if your element does not have a unique ID or any unique attribute? How do you locate it?
By using relative xpath, it might have any text, it might have any css selector. I'll make an xpath with a combination of both. Like text is abc and css selector is this and class is this. You can select as multiple attributes you want to select while creating an xpath. That is called relative xpath. Or I can say this button can be found below this or above this, that kind of relative xpath too.
Okay. So are you familiar with explicit and implicit weight?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain the difference between the two?
Explicit weights are mostly like um, when you are looking for an item to be clicked. Like I have put an explicit wait so that login button should enable, and I will be able to click for like 10 seconds. It will wait for 10 seconds until that login button is uh, active to be clicked on. But implicit waits, like I have provided an implicit wait to my testing suite, test case, that you should wait for an element to be appeared for at least 15 seconds. So it will wait for each and every element for 15 seconds until it's found. So in explicit wait, we particularly mention it for one element, that this element should be found and clickable. And in implicit waits, we apply that to all the elements, that once the tool is looking for an element to be found, it will wait 15 seconds until failing the test case.
All right. So do you know what a page object model is?
Yes, a little bit, not more than that.
Okay, can you explain it based on your own understanding?
Okay. I have in the page object model, we have page classes, we have elements and methods. We have the developers have used encapsulation as well. Um, you can say test scripts are written independently in the implementation of the web elements and interactions. So you can say it's a separation of the concerns. And when creating a page object model, I think a developer should um keep in mind three things that are easy for us when they are selecting because we have to create our frameworks according to their page object model. So first of all, is it reusable or not? The interaction between the web elements is in encapsulated page classes or not? The maintainability of the page object model, because if it's not maintainable, we cannot automate easily. So one, if they are changing the page object elements in the page object model again and again, we have to rewrite the test scripts. And the readability of the pom. So I have a very little overview of the page object model because I have worked with the developers selecting which pom we should use. So while we were selecting those, we kept in mind just three things, that was like, is it reusable, is it maintainable, and is it the readability of the scripts are more self-explanatory or not.
Okay. Are you familiar with annotations? I think in some tools it's called hooks, but are you familiar with them?
Tools called hooks.
Annotations or hooks?
Yeah, bdd framework at after, before step, after step, like that.
Hmm. So can you give me
Okay,
one
yes.
example and then explain how it works?
How it works in our system, or how it works usually. Like I can give a condition that is before, I can give a condition that is after, and before my first step, after my first step.
Right. So explain, let's say, before test. Have you used it before?
Okay.
Okay, can you
Yes.
explain how it works?
Let's suppose I have a login feature which I have to test. I'll just say user login, and as a registered user I want to log in so that I can access my account. So scenario is given that I am the only I am on the login page, and when I enter valid credentials and click on the login button, then I should be logged in as successful. So when I will be writing um, a test case, I'll just in the before, I'll set up my WebDriver before each scenario that I am going to run, and after in the after at the rate after, I'll ensure that WebDriver is closed, and every time the after uh, annotation is called. So in my given, I'll provide that I'm on the login page, like login page URL, and in the in the when, and then I'll put my credentials into it, and then I click on the login button, I get successfully logged in. So that, I guess I have explained, because it's a very complex thing to explain a, BDD test case verbally.
It's okay. So, are you familiar with the difference between assert and verify?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain the difference between the two?
Okay. Assertion is more like I'm looking for an object on the UI to be found, and verification is more like if I have a value, let's suppose 50, and I am checking a dashboard that has a dynamic values that change multiply on daily basis. I'll just uh, I'll just check that value is equals to 50 or not. If the, let's suppose my user ID is 123, that is saved in the database, and I want to verify the UI is showing the correct ID or not. That is verification. And for assertion, I'll just assert if the home page logo is there or not, a particularly element. I'll look for it. On the other hand, in verification, you can say in broader terms that entire it involves entire process of checking whether a system application meets its requirement and specification or not. You can say it's a series of checks. Verification is a series of checks. Assertion is just for particular one element, maybe two, three, but when you are putting an assertion, you can put it on for one element once.
Okay. So, for example, you run a script and then your script failed at the step where it should click a button, but it didn't. So, what do you think are like the possible causes of this failure and how would you investigate it?
The script was written as if the button is clicked,
Yeah,
then it will be a failure.
no, what I mean is there is a step on your test case or your test script where it is supposed to click a button, but it didn't click that button. So, and then it failed because it is expected to click the button, right? So, yeah. What are the possible causes and how would you investigate this?
Okay. The very basic first cause is that the XPath for that given button would should not be correct. That's why it could not find the button. If that's not the case, I'll see if the button was active at that time when it was supposed to be clicked on. If not, then what caused it not to be an active button? Like when we have save button, example, or we have applications that have particular buttons that gets enabled after a precondition has been met. Like I have enter a username password, then the login button gets enabled. Until unless the button will not be enabled. So I'll see if the button was active at that time or not. The second thing, I'll see that the XPath for the given button was correct or not. I'll check the XPath by copying that XPath and putting it on my inspect element and see if the element is being found on the manual side. I can am I able to find the particular button or element manually on the console, like on the console box. Then I'll see what else was missed, like if I have given any input in the automation script, like put username and password, then click on the login button. Did it does it give any kind of error, like the email already generated or not? um, so these are the first few things that I will be looking at once my test case is failed. But majorly the problem is like the XPath is not correct, or the XPath could not find the element, or the page was not being loaded, uh, or sometimes we have to put delay, like there is a 1-2 second delay between looking for an item. That's why we use implicit waits, like at least wait for 10 to 15 seconds for an element to be appeared. So
Yeah, it's okay.
that's it.
All right. So in your testing, do you have any, or what reporting tools have you used?
We I have used ntest,
Mm-hmm.
and I have used you can say q test and test,
Okay.
and there was one more. I'm not able to recall the name because currently the reports are being generated and just sent to our emails. So yeah, that was JUnit.
Okay.
We have used reporting NG and JUnit mostly. Currently, we are moving on to the Cucumber reports as well. So what happens is, once we are on the Jenkins side and we run our automated scripts, Jenkins and other, you can say, it creates Jenkins. Once the automation is completed, the report goes to test ng, or the test goes to JUnit, and then we get an email uh, via email dispenser we have put upon that. That is totally a DevOps thing, not in my terms.
Yeah, it's fine. Just jumping quickly onto the load testing. How do you think load testing is beneficial to the overall quality of the software that you're testing?
Load testing is beneficial because if you have multiple users at a time using the application, so is it like able, like if an example, do you know about Amazon, eBay? There are applications such as Amazon, eBay. They in initial phases they were very successful websites, they are very successful applications. But what happened is, once they put a sale on and there are multiple using currently using the website, there are 12 a.m. sale and everyone is going to the website is getting low. It's not able to handle that much traffic on that. So that's why performance validations, load testing helps us to verify that a software or application can handle the expected load and traffic volumes. And it also ensures that the application performs well under realistic conditions. And also when you are testing, performing the load or performance testing, it's a very combined effort, yeah, I can say, that allows you to access how the well application can scale, and how the application can you can say um, bear the expected load or something beyond the expected load. And that also ensures the resource optimization of your machines, AWS, that you are using. If you are using a very low machines and the resources are not being optimized, you try to optimize all the resources that you have. And it also improves the user experience as well, by if you when like perform load testing, stress testing, performance testing. So I'll sum up with it. uh, Load testing just beneficial It is very beneficial, but in very shorter terms, you can say, just to check if the application works well beyond the expected conditions. Like I expect my customers to be like 100. Check like if it works exactly on the 100 side or not. And when I have to perform a stress test, I'll go beyond that 100 limit. I'll go for 200, I'll go for 300, and check if the website is working well or not.
All right. Um, so on the last time you performed the load testing, were you able to identify any bottlenecks?
There are many times, like there were many times when I found bottlenecks while testing a website. Let's suppose we have implemented a new feature. Currently we have implemented a feature that creates a budget for the user. I'm just giving an example that creates a budget for the user. So every time a user clicks on create budget and gives her pre-required things like what was the budget and how many years he wants to build a budget for, it was taking up to like 15 to 16 minutes. What it was doing was the JSON was taking too long to be loaded and provide the response to the front end side. The API that we were using was taking a bit longer than expected, and I found that, and then asked the developer to like reduce the JSON. The JSON size, the JSON file size he was using was more than 250 MBs, and I asked him to like keep it low around in between 2 MBs to 4 MBs. So there are multiple bottlenecks I experience in my whole tenure working as a SQ engineer. There are sometimes there are CPU bottlenecks, and sometimes there is like if we have a very low category AWS, we have up 8 GB, 16 GB RAM one servers, so we get memory bottlenecks. And yeah, we are living in Pakistan, and I'm not disrespecting that, and I really love my country. So, but there are network bottlenecks. There are countries that are not third world countries. There are third world countries. We have sometimes network bottlenecks, so we have to overcome such issues. Um,
Okay.
I remember one time we had a load balancer installed on a website so that it balances the loads between two multiple servers. So there were bottlenecks for load balancer as well. I think that sounds funny, but there were uh, 2 or 3 times when I experienced bottlenecks from the load balancer.
That's fine. That's a very great answer and experience. Actually, we're running out of time. So I only have one last question, but I will send you another link so that we can continue our mock interview and also feedback. So I'll stop the recording here.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So yeah, in our previous call, you detail your experience with finding bottlenecks. Uh, did you have a chance to communicate this to your stakeholders?
Yes, if you see, like, we are currently discussing stuff, and sometimes we listen from our stakeholders on Zendesk. You have heard of the tool. So they are providing their feedbacks, they are providing their, if they have found any errors, if they are experiencing some kind of issues, and multiple things. If they want any feature to be developed, we call it user stories. So yes, we are connected with our stakeholders as well.
Okay. And actually, this is another uh, question, which is like a more general question in automation. Do you conduct any peer or code review with your fellow QAs?
Yes, we do, because you cannot find issues in your own written work. It lacks of objectivity. So as developers follow the same thing. Developers send us their code to be verified, to be QA'd. We send our code to our project manager. We send our code between among ourselves as well. Like if I'm working on component A and someone is working on component B, the component B one just ask me, just can you just review my code so that it gets approved on to be published on the website, or it published on, I can create a branch to merge it on the GitHub site. So yeah, before merging the code we get our codes reviewed, sometimes by our project manager. There are two or three, so they have a lot of other work too. So usually we have to review our code among ourselves. Just like senior SQS like me reviews the code for the junior ones, and our code, like when what we write, are reviewed by the manager.
Okay. So when you're reviewing other like QA's code, what are the usual issues that you find?
Actually they all are they all are trained by us, like the senior SQA ones. They all are trained by us, so there are issues that can be found, such as they have put less assertions. They have used a complex code, a complex Java code for their logic. So we correct their logics. Like if you have used this one, the your expectation should have been met way before. It wouldn't have to take longer than that. Sometimes their applications, sometimes their scripts lack of, you can say, delays and waits. As we talked about implicit and explicit waits, that causes, like if there is a notification that is supposed to be coming after 5 minutes, they have put an implicit wait for 5 minutes. No, it's expected to come between like 1 to 5 minutes or 0 to 5 minutes. So they have put an explicit wait, like once the element is found, just go and uh, move forward. So some smaller bugs, not that one, that much bigger ones. Sometimes they are using the same class in two different methods. That is somehow correct, but this should not be the usual practice. So such things we look for when reviewing the code.
Okay. Actually, that concludes my questions for this interview. Is it okay if I give a few feedbacks?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yeah, actually, I think this mock interview went really well, and your answers to my questions are very, how can I say this? Um, Descriptive or very based on experience. The downside of that is some of your answers. There are questions, very short questions that can be answered by with straightforward sentences, right? I'm not saying don't include examples, but there are questions that you can choose which ones to answer with your experience, and um you can choose the questions where you can answer with like very simple definitions. So yeah, let me check which question was it, like maybe like the benefits of load testing. There are very straightforward forward answers to that. It's very great that you provided your experience, although there are more important questions to be asked. So it would be great to have shorter answers for these kinds of questions.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think assert and verify, this wasn't answered very clearly. So feel free to just Google it. And then other than that, I think uh, your answers are very impressive and very based on your experience, like I said. So yeah, I think that's it for my feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And that ends this mock interview. I'm gonna stop the recording.